Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Gamey Daddy channel. So today I wanted to share something that I basically stumbled across, on the interwebs with you guys. And this is quite interesting because some of it is a little bit of conjecture, but it really does intersect with a lot of what I do on YouTube. And for those of you who don't know, shameless plug, I have a second YouTube channel. It's called Video Game Fight School channel, and I cover Batman and superhero gaming content on there. So if that's something you're interested in, you can go check it out. Maybe I'll leave a link in the description, but you can search it on YouTube and you should find it. But what I wanted to talk about basically seems to have just cut across all of that scope, and even with the Division 2 being, the main game that I cover on this channel, Ubisoft is a developer of, the publisher basically of this game. And something really interesting came to light on watching a commentary on why Cyberpunk 2077's release failed. And inside of this, somehow Ubisoft got shoved into the equation, and I'll try my best to actually help explain and, provide the strands that's actually leading me to these conclusions for all of you. And, by the end of the video somewhere, I'll be able to maybe just, kind of showcase why I think a lot of people have not necessarily been that impressed with the Division 2, especially from the OG community. Now, first of all, we have our different qualms about the Division 2. We have our different feelings about the game. Some from the OG community, I can just say safely that there's a lot of prequel bias. They just enjoy the Division 1 more than Division 2. That's not something that can be fixed or changed. It happens in many games where the sequel can never be better. Even though it tries to do a lot better, it will be judged harshly by the faults that it has. And that's the Division 2. It's really been judged harshly, even though right now it has more content. Its systems and mechanics are actually better than the Division 2, but it's hard for many to see because they have those blinders on. And Division 1 is a unique experience. You can't help it. But now PvP, that's a whole different conversation. But here's the whole story. I was watching this video on why Cyberpunk 2077's engineering actually did, do it in and, destroy its launch. And this, person that was making this video talked about a whole bunch of technical issues that may, have arisen and some things that they did not check for. Now, as my natural instincts went, I decided to go to the comment section and started reading. And I saw a comment that mentioned something about being a AAA developer and the problem that you have from many games. The comment goes as, quote, "I worked as a game programmer for 7 years on 2 AAA games at Ubisoft. All delay problems, all software quality problems were coming from basically one source: constant changes by game designers." Wow, this is quite revealing that somebody on the inside is saying this. Now, they are saying it under anonymity, but for the longest time, I have actually suspected that this may be the case. And I'm going to tell you why I think so. And I'm going to show you multiple examples that we've gleaned from other games that have had issues in the industry as well. Let me finish this comment for you guys. And he says, when you keep asking modifications but don't change milestone dates, the code suffers a lot. You have to make quick changes / fixes so you get more bugs, and they are harder to fix. Game designers are the weakest link in game development. Their constant changes waste a lot of time. This is a very strong and scathing statement. If you guys really remember the debacle that went on with The Last of Us 2, a lot of different things were coming out. Some of them were rumors, but some of them seemed to share some kind of a similarity with what this statement and comment is making. Basically, they're saying that game designers usually can be, a weak link depending on them. They usually make these changes because, artistic direction. And I'm not saying that these changes are bad. In fact, in many cases, some of these changes are huge changes, or some of these implementations, which may be challenging to make, are game changing and defining moments in a game that the designers themselves know if they don't put them in the game, that their game's not going to be unique and their game's not going to stand out. On further research, people started asking this guy, what games did you work on? What games did you work on? And he finally, cracked and said he worked specifically on Splinter Cell and worked on an old Rainbow Six Siege game in the 2000s. Not only did he work on Splinter Cell, he worked on Splinter Cell Conviction. Well, on my Batman gaming channel, I'm covering the new upcoming Batman game, Batman themed game called Gotham Knights. And that creative director came from Ubisoft. So I went and checked that creative director's LinkedIn, and yikes, he worked on Splinter Cell Conviction 2. And I was like, no, dang it. Why are all these things coming in line? This is insane, because that whole ecosystem, basically the game from that studio had been delayed multiple times. There were games that were in the works that got canceled. I don't know if that was maybe the game designer's decision or maybe that was a decision from the publisher, but this same game designer has been at this studio trying to make this Batman game since 2014, and they're going to finally deliver this game next year. Perhaps the game is complex and required 6 or 7 years to make. I doubt it, because that same studio was able to pull out Arkham Origins in about 2 years with a more efficient team and a more efficient way of doing things. Yes, Arkham Origins could have used maybe 1 more year of polish, but large, I thought it was a success. And so thinking about how this particular, new information that I've learned may have affected Division 2, I think that's probably what we're seeing. Game development and game design changes that most likely, implemented this, then went ahead and complicated things for everybody. In some cases, the game design changes may have been just, with the best intentions at heart, in order for them to be able to change the game, in order for them to be able to bring something fresh to the table. Because ideally, I believe that if they had actually taken everything from Division 1 and put in Division 2, there would have been no shortage of criticisms that would have said, oh yeah, by the way, you guys basically recycled your old game. I mean, there's definitely that portion where would have heard it. But, they decided to kind of mix things up a little bit. But some things that they actually did implement and change seem to have caused the issue with the game. Another thing, too, with the Division 2 on its release was one of the big issues that we saw was skills had no direction. Remember when skills were in the game and nobody could figure out what skills actually were doing in the game? It felt like skills were useless. And so for the longest time, there was necessarily no implementation on how to actually put the skills. And I'm thinking in my mind that perhaps they probably had some system in place, but once the game, was about to release, they feared that the system was going to be too strong, and they decided to just basically keep everything on a halt. So these challenges are what game developers and what video games face. And I'm really concerned that if for some reason with the Division 3, this creeps into the development, we may be seeing some issues as that game releases. I'm hoping not, because everyone is so tilted, not everyone, but most are tilted, that the development team in Division 1 said we learned a lot from the Division 1. And then when they brought their whole expertise to the Division 2, it seemed like it fell flat on some aspects. I still like Division 2, don't get me wrong, but I think this may have been the nexus of a lot of the issues that we're seeing. Now, to be very fair and to be very honest, game development is hard. I believe strongly that the Division 2 is one of the most intricately designed video games on the AAA market. Hands down. Think about it. You're wearing your gear and you have perfect Vanguard. You pop your shield, and your shield in real time is able to update your armor at that percentage to the rest of your team, who are also on a network that's outside of where you are. And this is done remotely in real time, and Perfect Vanguard has a cooldown that works almost 100% of the time if your connection has a good fidelity. Just this one system by itself to code requires some real huge expertise in programming. Any software developer can tell you that. That's not including your capacitor, your rigger, your hardwired, all of these different unique systems that you enjoy or you take for granted. I understand that these things are designed to bring enjoyment to the gameplay of a game. But I made this video because I also understand that sometimes simplicity may be better. So those systems that do work right now in the Division 2 and systems that did work in Division 1, I genuinely feel like the development teams need to focus on these systems, which is another criticism that video that was criticizing or talking about Cyberpunk 2077's development issues highlighted, because a lot of times ambition can usually cloud the minds of game developers as well. Another very big highlight that I wanted to also point out was also in God of War. If you guys played God of War, you remember the system with Atreus, which is where Kratos was moving around with a companion who not only was just a companion, but could be affected by combat and could also affect combat. And Atreus was a companion that while you were fighting, you could actually control him to fire arrows at your enemy NPCs with a button in the game. Corey Barlog, in an interview that he actually did, I think it was a talk or something, but I think it was on Ars Technica, he said that developing that system almost broke them. He said he was so confused and stressed out because he wanted the system and he knew the system was going to work. But in order to get the system, they needed some expertise. In fact, he said he took his game designer with him and they went to Naughty Dog and asked them, can you guys help us with this? Because Naughty Dog does a lot of those kinds of systems in their games where you have a companion following you around. And he said at Naughty Dog, they couldn't help them. All they had in Naughty Dog was just an AI that followed you and sometimes would fight in combat with you or could be influenced. But that was all done separately. The player was not controlling the main character and the AI. But he wanted that system to be in the game, and I can tell you for sure that I enjoyed the system. Now, not many may have really, understood how difficult that is, but I can tell you, if you pick up any game software, any game engine, try to make a companion character that just follows your main character, not even trying to control that character, and see how challenging that is. That's a very difficult task to accomplish. So I understand the ambition, which Cyberpunk 2077 and even Tom Clancy's Division 2 may have tried to pursue. But in many cases, this is where I come to the point where I'm more lenient in my critique these days, because sometimes, yes, you have incompetence. Sometimes you have, waste of management time and waste of resources. Yes, that is a real issue that can happen, especially in a corporate setting. But at the end of the day, when you look at the product and look at all of the different, contents or the different compartments of the product, I think you have to judge it by that. And that's how I see the Division 2. I judge it by the sum, the parts that make the whole. I don't go ahead and say, oh, Division 2 and Division 1 and this and that. I can't really do that because I also believe that the game direction 2 may have changed from both games as well. It's quite obvious. There's probably another set of designers and another set of, people calling the shots on this game. Yes, we had some people come from Division 1, but, with this kind of a difference, I think they may have received directive to move in a slightly different direction that pushed the game to where it is right now, which is still a good product. I mean, after a lot of, tweaking and, fine tuning, the Division 2 has come a long way. And I would definitely give the Division 2 in its current state right now when it comes to the PvE. I'll give it an 8 out of 10 easily. I mean, PvP on the other hand, don't ask me, ask all the PvP content creators what they think about that. But that's pretty much my video. I hope this was informative. I hope this opened up some of our notions to what the game development cycle may be. I try my best to do some of these videos from time to time. And yeah, some of this stuff is actually conjecture and hearsay. But at the end of the day, you can't help but think, what if? Talk to you all in another video. Peace.